I truly enjoy making these videos, trying to share my viewpoints and information that I find in various sources. And obviously, most of the information I'm getting is off of news outlets like MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. Every so often, I'll come up with a subject that doesn't require any video substantiation, and I'll basically just give you hard facts and let you go from there. I have to tell you that this video that I'm about to bring you, which is a clip from MSNBC, The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, really gave me a lot of enjoyment. Excuse me. Lawrence O'Donnell is going to interview quote-unquote Pastor Darrell Scott. I get so tired of these phony ass preachers, these phony ass black preachers that are in the ministry for the money and nothing else. None of these phony guys can take me to hell along with them, and they damn sure are going to go. And Pastor Darrell Scott is probably going to lead the parade. I'm going to play this video where he interacted with Lawrence O'Donnell, and they get into a major disagreement pretty much from their opening interaction all the way through the end of the video. And Darrell Scott lies his ass off. All right, here we go.
In a country with a rather strict constitutional separation of church and state, it should be surprising how often presidential campaigns emphasize religion, but it isn't surprising. The political media is not only not surprised, the political media encourages the use of religion in campaigns.
Just this weekend, there was an article I read in the Detroit News saying that you keep your Judaism in the background, and that's disappointing some Jewish leaders. Is that intentional?
Republican politicians became noticeably more religious, publicly anyway, beginning in 1980, when a group calling itself the Moral Majority was formed. The Moral Majority gave birth to what became known as the Christian right in American politics, and Republican politicians realized they would need ever stronger public professions of Christian religious faith in order to win the support of the Christian right. Democratic politicians eventually took to public professions of their faith as eagerly and frequently as Republicans. Of course, faith can never be proved. And so the religious right had, in effect, created a religious political game that anyone could play, including an atheist. All you have to do is say what the candidates always say about God and religion, and you'll be okay. No one will know if you secretly don't believe it. There's no way of testing it. It's not like asking a presidential candidate how much he or she has paid in taxes. Their answers can be proven just by looking at their tax returns, which they all make public, except Donald Trump. With Donald Trump, the truth is harder to find than with any other presidential candidate that we've ever seen. Donald Trump's public professions of religion are the most hollow we've ever heard from a presidential candidate. Every other candidate we've heard from is either truly religious or at least has done enough homework to know how to sound religious. Today in Manhattan, Donald Trump met with some leaders of the Christian right. He told them lies to their faces, and they applauded. He spoke of, quote, freeing up your religion, freeing up your thoughts. You talk about religious liberty and religious freedom. You don't have any religious freedom, if you think about it. Donald Trump told religious leaders in the country with more religious freedom than any in the world, quote, you don't have any religious freedom. He also tried to suggest Hillary Clinton doesn't have any religion.
I think the math in terms of religion. And she's been in the public eye for years and years, and yet there's nothing out there. There's like nothing out there.
That is a lie. Plain and simple. There is plenty of stuff out there if you bother to look or pay attention to your opponent.
Michael Farris attended the very first meeting of the Moral Majority in Indianapolis in February of 1980. He has been active in the Christian right ever since. He was not invited to today's meeting because he has not been supportive of Donald Trump. Today, Michael Farris wrote, "This meeting marks the end of the Christian right." He said Donald Trump is, quote, "a candidate whose worldview is greed and whose God is his appetites." The meeting was attended by James Dodson, Ralph Reed, Franklin Graham, the son of Billy Graham. Michael Farris wrote today that attending the meeting meant choosing politics over religion. Quote, "They are saying we are Republicans no matter what the candidate believes and no matter how vile and unrepentant his character. They are not a phalanx of God's prophets confronting a wicked leader. This is a parade of elephants. In 1980, I believed that Christians could dramatically influence politics. Today, we see politics fully influencing 1,000 Christian leaders. This is a day of mourning." Michael Farris joins us now by telephone, and also with us in the studio here in New York, Pastor Darrell Scott. He attended 2 meetings with Donald Trump today. He's also the CEO of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump.
Translation, Darrell Scott is a paid employee for Donald Trump.
Pastor Scott, what is your reaction to Michael Farris mourning over this meeting that you had today?
Well, I think Michael Farris's reaction is an overreaction. It was simply a question and answer session with a presidential candidate, and
That's not true. That meeting was designed in order to pick up endorsements from the pastors and ministers that attended the meeting. And in truth, the majority of the pastors and ministers that attended that meeting came away from that meeting without endorsing Mr. Trump. Now, some of them were convinced and did in fact issue endorsements for Trump, but the majority, the huge majority of the pastors at that meeting did not endorse Trump. Trump basically had an audience of, and I believe it wasn't 1,000, it was 900, but he had an audience with where he gave his spiel on what he believed, and the main point that he pushed in that meeting was that he was going to protect their religious rights.
say this was a day of mourning. The incident in Orlando was a day of mourning. The incident in San Bernardino was a day of mourning. 911 was a day of mourning. This was simply a day of an exchange of ideas and an intercourse of dialogue. I think he's overreacting.
Do you share Donald Trump's apparent doubt that Hillary Clinton is a religious person?
He didn't necessarily question her religion.
What do you mean? That thing that we heard him say, what did you think he meant?
What he was saying was he doesn't...
We heard the words. Tell me what you thought he meant.
He doesn't know what her religion is.
But she said it publicly.
What did she say?
Let's play it.
Okay, see, and that's bullshit. Donald Trump basically said she's nowhere. So he was questioning her religion, and here's Darrell Scott trying to defend him by saying he doesn't know.
Do we have it in the control room? Go ahead.
I am a person of faith. I am a Christian. I am a Methodist. I have been raised Methodist. I feel very grateful for the instructions and support I received starting in my family, but through my church.
All right, and before this continues, if you read any book authored by Hillary Clinton regarding her history, in the very first chapter of any book that she's written or been associated with, it always mentions her faith. the fact that she's a practicing Methodist, the fact that one of a minister that she's very friendly with communicates with her on a weekly basis. But apparently, I was able to obtain that information, but Mr. Trump, with all of his quote-unquote billions and all of the people that he has around him, including Mr. Scott, was not able to ascertain that information.
Michael Farris, apparently for people like Pastor Scott here, there's nothing Hillary Clinton can say about religion that they will ever hear.
Well, that's probably true to some degree. You have to take people at face value. If she says she's a Methodist and has that Christian tradition, I accept it at face value. What I am concerned with is two things. Is do they have in their political world the same kind of political views that derive from a biblical worldview? And do they have moral character? And Donald Trump, which has been my focus, has neither. He doesn't understand the issues that have motivated the Christians like me to get involved in politics, and he simply doesn't have character, regardless of what he professes about his personal faith. Like you said, that's fairly easy to fake one way or the other. But what I really want to know is, does he have the character to go with it? What has he done on paying back his debts? What has he done on making fun of his neighbor? And the Bible says that we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. Making fun of disabled people, for example, is not loving our neighbor as ourselves. And so there's so many ways that his character falls woefully short. And I just mentioned his sexual bravado and all the things that he's done in that area. That's small potatoes compared to the living immorality that he's exhibiting for us every day in this campaign.
Charles Scott, what's your response to that?
My response is that, first of all, worldviews evolve over time. Worldviews oftentimes are affected by the variables of our society. Worldviews evolve, character develops. And when you find yourself at certain stages or junctures in life, you become more reflective and you become more introspective, and we can't say that because a person was a certain way that person is always going to be that way. He being a biblical man, we should all know from the example of the Apostle Paul that he lived his life one way, then he began to live his life another way. There's a void that Donald Trump seeks to fill. It's not a void that seeks to be filled by power. It's a void that seeks to be filled by the legacy that he's going to leave and his desire to benefit his fellow man. That's what his genuine desire is. And
that is such bullshit and double talk. Number one, the one thing that Donald Trump desires above anything else is power. Number two, Donald Trump is a marketer, so he's marketing himself in such a way as to be acceptable to the masses so that he can, quote unquote, obtain that power. Now, as far as worldviews and philosophies, how long does it take this guy to have a worldview that is one that is beneficial to his fellow man? This man is damn near 70 years old, if he's not 70 years old. And as recently as last month, he basically defamed or cast aspersions on an American citizen claiming that he was Mexican. Within the past 6 months, as previously indicated, he made fun of a handicapped person, and we all know about his aspersions on people of Mexican descent and actual illegal aliens, Mexicans coming across the border, and how he disparaged them. And those thoughts, those feelings have not changed. He has consistently repeated them. Then you have the question of him disparaging Muslims and obviously being racist against Muslims. And that is not a Christian teaching.
For him to say he has a world view of greed and we live in a capitalistic society, then that is a microcosm of American society as a whole. We're a capitalistic society. Everyone in our American culture has a capitalistic lifestyle. So, you know, the socialists and the communists say that is a lifestyle that is rooted in greed. We can't blame
Michael Ferris, Gerald Scott apparently believes that all Americans are driven by greed.
To some extent, yes.
I hate to disagree with him. I believe in free market.
Now remember this, he just said all Americans are driven by greed to some extent. That is absolutely not true, but that's going to come up later on in this video.
The free enterprise system, that's a great system. I'm not a socialist, I'm not a communist in any respect. But there is a big difference between believing in opportunity and private property and other things, and greed. Greed is taking advantage of people. Greed is seeking money for its own sake. Greed is borrowing money you never intend to pay back. Greed is entering into business contracts and breaking them time after time after time so that you gain over somebody else's loss. And that's not what the Bible teaches. That's not what this country was founded upon. That's not the kind of free enterprise our founders thought we were making. It just simply...
Gerald Scott, hold it. You're supporting a candidate who is facing fraud charges from coast to coast, from New York to California, and those fraud charges are based indeed on greed, on gain that he was trying to...
First of all, greed, once again, is a subjective term. He can't talk about what our country was founded upon.
Fraud is not subjective, it's legal. He's charged
fraud is subjective, but greed is a subjective term.
What do you think of your candidate being
relative
charged
to the
with fraud
individual?
in 2 states? Does that bother you at all?
Hold on.
Do the fraud charges
I want to
bother you?
address, it's an accusation. I want to address something he said. He said our country was founded. He's acting as if this country was not founded upon greed and our founding fathers owned slaves. What are you talking about? So let's not try to act as if our founding fathers were saints with halos on their head that founded our country on moral values and principles that we have devolved from.
That's bullshit. The country was founded based on the need to obtain religious freedom. That's one of the main things that the country was founded on. Yes, there were slaves. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was part of the economic system. That does not translate into greed.
That's not the truth at all. Our founding father, Thomas Jefferson, was a slave owner. So we can't say that, first of all. Second of all, anyone that's had any type of entrepreneurial and anyone that's been in business, being sued is a regular part of business.
No, it's not.
Yep.
No, it's not. The majority of the businesses operating in this country, millions of businesses, have never been sued. Never been sued. Mega corporations are the ones that are primarily sued for various reasons. And the reason that they're sued is because of the millions, the tens and hundreds of millions of interactions they have with suppliers and customers and employees. Okay, so that is the primary reason why they are sued, because given the huge number of interactions on all three of those levels, the opportunity for something to go wrong is greatly magnified. In a mom and pop store, you have very little opportunity to be sued. Mr. Scott doesn't know what he's talking about.
Sam Walton was a Christian, and Walmart has been sued more than
most businesses are never sued. Most businesses are never sued.
You have major congratulations.
That's nonsensical.
They are.
Michael, I want to ask you.
Most businesses have been sued multiple times.
Michael, look, understand this. You live in a country where most businesses are never
small
sued.
businesses, but large corporations are sued on a regular basis. Stop.
Michael, I want to ask you about this point you made at the end of your piece, okay, which is today we see politics fully influencing 1,000 Christian leaders. At the beginning of your involvement in this in 1980, you were hoping that Christians could influence politics, and now you see it reversed so that the politics are influencing the Christian leaders. Do you Do you regret what's become of this movement into politics? And now that you can look at it over decades, might it have been better for religious leaders to simply stay on the sidelines?
Well, I regret where it's gone, that's for sure. I believe that the movement was well-intentioned, especially at the grassroots level. And I think that a lot of good things did happen. Vote now is higher. And so it's always good when more people vote and vote according to principles and issues that they believe in. So I think a lot of good has come from it, but it has been twisted and perverted in my viewpoint in some circles, and nothing like this election has twisted and perverted it more than all the shenanigans we're seeing. I mean, when you see a defense of greed, the Bible preaches against greed multiple times. It's listed in Mark 7, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander. Those are things we're all supposed to avoid, and yet Donald Trump stands up and says that he's greedy. And we have a pastor that is saying, I support Donald Trump. America's built on greed. I don't agree with that. I think we're built on freedom. I think we're built on limited government. I think we're built on some really good principles.
And we're built on capitalism.
Okay, Pastor Scott, I want to give you the last word on this, and let's agree that big business litigation is very common.
That's all I'm
But
saying.
in small business and in
Absolutely right.
most business in America, it is not common. Okay,
I believe it's more common than people
Let's
think.
just go out on this religious question.
Lawrence got him, and he made him admit big business of being sued is common, which is what I said earlier. Small businesses very rarely are sued.
Which is, Michael Farris has just pointed out that greed is a sin in I believe, in your own religious beliefs. Do you believe that greed is a sin?
Greed is a sin, gluttony is a sin, overeating is a sin, covetousness is a sin. There are a number of sins.
But it's a sin. But
There's
greed is the
overt
sin
sins, there
that
are
you
covert
approve of
sins.
in a presidential
No, I don't
campaign?
approve of it. I
You just
don't
did,
approve
though.
of greed anymore.
You approved of greed, now you're saying it's a sin.
I didn't approve
You
of greed. I
approved of Donald
approved of
Trump's greed,
capitalism.
now you say
I
it's a
approved
sin.
of capitalism.
And now you're
any
saying they're the same
business-
thing? Is it the
any-
same word, capitalism and greed?
Capitalism is based upon the acquisition of
Is
more.
capitalism the same as greed?
In some respects.
So capitalism is a sin?
Capitalism is nowhere near the same as greed. Oh my God, this guy is a flippin' idiot.
Can become
So
greedy.
capitalism is a sin.
Capitalism can become
Your
greedy.
religion says
The
capitalism
Bible
is a sin.
says to do all things in moderation. Any inordinate affection for anything can become a sin.
Pastor Darrell Scott, the champion of greed in America.
No,
Is that
you're not
the way you
gonna
want to
put
leave
that on
it?
me.
Is that the way you want to leave
Is
it?
that the way you want to leave it?
You told me that you support greed in Donald Trump.
I
You
didn't
then
tell you
told me that greed is capitalism.
You're doing, lying is a sin as well. And you just lied in my face because I didn't tell you that. I said greed is ruled, capitalism is based upon
approve of
greed.
Donald Trump's greed. You say
I
greed
approved of
equals
I said-
capitalism.
I
You say it's
said-
the same
I
word.
said I agree with Donald Trump's capitalism. That's what I said.
Michael Farris,
Any
thank you
business,
very
let me
much.
ask you a question. Do you
No,
work
we're
for
done.
free? Do you work for free?
We're done.
Are you working here for
We're
free?
done.
Then you agree with
Greed
me.
is not a sin.
You agree with me. Do you want more? Do
Greed is
you
not
want a
a sin.
bigger paycheck? Do you think you're paid enough?
We're going to have to stop.
Yeah, we do.
Darrell Scott,
You
Michael
need to
Farris,
stop.
thank you very much for your thoughtful comments today that got this discussion started here tonight. Darrell Scott, thank you for joining us. Up next, Donald.
He got him. Yeah. Who the hell? Darrell Scott's such an idiot. He's talking about, do you want to work for free? No, you work for a wage. All throughout, from the beginning of time, you work in order to benefit your condition. You do not work for free. Only the slaves work for free. Obviously, that was wrong. So Darrell Scott trying to create a false narrative here was just flipping ridiculous. Darrell Scott is the biggest phony preacher that I have seen in a long time, and I've seen quite a few. But he's just an example of the type of person that works for Donald Trump. You close your eyes to morals, right and wrong, and take that paycheck. So Darrell, keep taking that paycheck. Hopefully when Donald loses, they will go after you. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they've already removed you from the church that you were pastor at. I'm not sure. It was either you or another pastor that was one of the big Donald Trump supporters, if I'm not mistaken, and also Pastor Darrell Scott, it would be nice if you would accept Roland Martin's challenge to come on his show and debate him. He's made that offer several times, and you have yet to accept.